All right, gang. So we're going to go ahead and get started now. Did everyone survive April Fool's Day? I guess if you didn't survive, you wouldn't be logged in here, right? Yeah, I didn't see many April Fool's posts this year. All right. Well, it is April 3rd. So, welcome to Forward Focus. We are going to take a look at what's going on in the overall market right now on a bigger scale. So, if you have individual stocks or markets you want me to take a look at, please post them here and we will pull them up. So, we're going to get started with the overall market, of course, first. So, we're going to pull up our NASDAQ, S&Ps, Russell, all of that fun stuff first to take a look at. And then we'll switch gears a little bit. So here's what we've got going on the weekly time frame right now. So you can see our 2T from about a month and a half ago is coming into target 3. So we've been holding that target 3 zone. Let me show that to you guys. Right here. It's just that break. That is target 3. This is target 2 on the 2T pattern. 2T is this strategy right here with the short. So we're just kind of playing around here right now. Since this fell so steeply, it's going to be doing a lot of back and forth here. So we'll see, probably a lot of this type of chop. We've looked at a number of examples of a 2T over the weekend, last weekend. So that's a great session. Go back and review it. It's on my YouTube channel. That's going to give you a bigger idea of what this strategy was coming off of the highs, as well as some of the things that we can look for now that we are at the zone of support. So what often happens here is we'll get, some chopping. It can even sometimes go a little bit higher, but ultimately we tend to see lower lows. So we'll probably get a lot more of that back and forth. It's usually a pretty decent swing trade environment. But of course, right now we've got a lot of news. So things are going to be like hyper, which means, for options traders, it can be pretty good. But be careful out there. So we're going to have some bigger swings back and forth. I'm going to pull up the daily chart for you now so you can see how that is kind of getting started. So here, I'm just going to widen this up a little bit. Can kind of see that action. Show you the measured move over here. Grab my mouse again. That measured move. Then we had that shift off of the lows, move up. We got a shift off of the highs. So we're kind of looking at this as even having the potential to give us another pull back to those previous low zone here on the daily time frame. This will look a little bit cleaner on the intraday. Here's the 60-minute. I'm going to add some more data here though for us. Been having to redo my charts here over on this computer because of a little bit of a meltdown. So here we can see the momentum reversals really clear. We had the move down, the shift here, move up, the shift here, momentum reversal. We were looking at this the other day with that megaphone coming off of the highs. And it basically hit the main target for a momentum reversal. So in Legal Traders this week, we're going to be studying momentum reversals. So keep these in mind as we go into that next week. And basically, right now is a zone that we have potential for an avalanche to form. So it's not much of a correction so far. It's actually kind of widening up. So we have a little bit of a megalanche as well. Time development wise, we're at the first zone where we could usually see continuation moves going, but not quite getting it yet. We might still. You can see another correction about the same amount of time back in here as well. So if it doesn't go here, the next zone would be about here. What we can also have happening at times here is that this can sometimes go into a bigger megaphone. There's not really a clue as to that happening yet right now. Kind of just playing things pretty close to the vest and just looking at what's going on the smaller time frames at the moment. This is a 10-minute, but I'm going to pull up a little bit bigger. You can see the megaphone here on the 10-minute. Go to, let's do a 15. So the 15, as you can see, it's pretty messy. There's not really a huge bias strategy on this 15-minute time frame. We've got a lot of semi-megaphone type of moves. You've got the move here, the move here. So you've got point 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit tighter distance between 2 and 4 than between 1 and 3. And then we've got this trying again over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And coming in there. But there's not really, a good strategy. Nice two-wave here with the avalanche. This might go into a continuation to bring it back down in here, kind of pull that bigger megaphone lower, but it's going to be tricky. So I would play these just as day trade scalper type of moves right now. We're getting a lot of 1-2 patterns where it's going 1 and 2 and then reversing. We had that happening last night going into the close. Let me clear this. Kind of hard to see it here, but it's right here. 1 and 2, and then it kind of flipped after hours. It's actually easier to see on a tick chart here. So we have gotten a lot of these. 1 and 2, flip, 1 and 2, flip, just over and over again right now in the current market. So here you can see what's going on the smaller scale. A little bit of a really steep momentum reversal here, so couldn't flip it over. 2-wave correction, 3 waves down, 3 waves up. Basically down at the lower end of the channel here. So this is trying to decide if it can give us another breakdown. But again, not a lot of higher probability strategies on some bigger time frames, even on the intraday charts here right now. One thing to note with action like this, if it does break the channel, like on the upside, a lot of times you can get a good momentum push on it. We saw that happening. Let's see, what's something that happened on here? It didn't do it here, it tried. But let me show you back. We've got some of them that are doing that. Kind of did that on the downside here with that avalanche. See, it was kind of just chopping on the way up. Then when it finally broke the channel, we got a really nice move. What's nice is that if you get something that you have the channel here and then it's kind of hugging that lower end of the channel, that's where you're going to have more of the stronger break. So that's going to apply to the lows too. So when we're looking at where things are trading right now in the channel, there's nothing hugging that upper end. So if this can pop up here and hug, then that can do another pop up with like a Phoenix type of trade. Just nothing going on right now. Can I explain the avalanche on the hourly chart? So we don't have a beautiful avalanche. What we would get with a really nice avalanche is it would go something like this. So this might try to shape up a little bit longer, and what we would have is then some even spacing, treating this as a shoulder, this as a head, and then this as a shoulder. This will make sense to those of you that were in League of Traders this week. But it would be timing out to about over here, ideally, to try to bring that drop in. So you've got a little bit of time where this could just mess around throughout today. Let's go look at the ES and the Russell. Pull up the Russell first. So here you can see this is kind of creating a tilted continuation. You're right at 0.3, so it's a do or die point. So this could do, again, that 1, 2, 3, that would mean, you know, it wouldn't go out for that longer avalanche like we were looking on the of the NASDAQ a second ago. It could go a little bit faster, and that's a possibility on the NASDAQ too. Till Friday. Yeah, it could be. Again, that drop would be the main potential move that I would look for. Not really too much else right now. Here's our daily. So you can see daily is trying to make its way back down to that lower end of that channel. And I think this stands a pretty good shot of happening. Weekly's not going to go back further, but not really anything here. Again, really extended. So this is a widening up zone. So it goes along with kind of expecting more back and forth action. Let's go look at the S&Ps. So we're coming in down into the lower end of the mega phone on there. Same pattern here. So you can see it trying to do that little bit of a really messy avalanche with the potential then for another way back down. And this can do it with a couple of things. So you can get the measured move type, but you could also get one that goes and does a move like that and then kind of opens up again down here. So that would be another possibility given how things are forming right now. I wouldn't be surprised if we gapped lower into Sunday evening, just depending on how things play out here this afternoon, but I think that we have a good possibility of that. Let's see, what do you guys have for individual stocks you want me to look at? We got LK, PBR. Every time I see PBR, I just think peanut butter and jelly, but even though that doesn't make any sense because the R is obviously not a J. But I always think that. So see how this kind of went and then did like that continuation? That's what we could see happening on the intraday charts. So here, it's kind of tricky on a move like this. A lot of times with a gap like this, it then spends the time trying to, you know, figure out which way it's going to break coming out of that. So sometimes you'll get them that they just then start creeping lower. So you'll just see break after break after break on an intraday chart, but they'll do it kind of slowly. So you'll get like, so like, let's say here's the gap, right? So you might get that little pop here, and then it'll just kind of go like that, and you'll see it just kind of steadily moving down on the daily time frame, and then every once in a while it'll pop. But I don't think we're at that point yet for that. So this is something I would usually see play out on a daily time frame. So overall, I don't think that you're going to get much for pop action. If it does, it'd probably be shorter, little intraday type. On PBR, got some initial support here, but I think you're gonna see this try to close in on that gap a little bit better. You can see you have the similar issues going on here on the weekly. The gap is basically this multi-day run here. And so you can see how it kind of started chopping around down there after that extreme impulse wave. This is trying to do a 2T here. So this risks flushing back down here now. You can see that kind of shift in the momentum here. So you got the two waves up and then the shift. So this can bring it back down again too. This one's a little bit trickier because when something's coming off of the lows and it's trying to shift momentum over here at the lows, sometimes this will go into a base like that. So it won't get like the confirmation with the momentum. So it'll end up doing like a two wave like this that'll be kind of tilted up, and then it can pop up one more time before dropping so that you end up with 1 and 2 and then 1 and 2 and then like that. So we're right about here on that. So sometimes this can be tilted to the upside and then do the pullback. So you got to really watch that momentum coming out of there. But if it's fast to start with, it's probably going to make it with a two-wave move back down to lows and even a lower low. But right now, there's no confirmation yet. So we got to see if that shallow avalanche picks up steam there. You guys got a lot of stock charts to look at today. Cool. Google, Tesla, GLD, which is, of course is gold, INO. You can see Google, the same thing going on Google as is going on the overall market. So see if it went with like a 1, 2, 3, it would go today, but it could also base out a little bit longer, like some of these other little corrections in here. And that can go. So right now we're at about this space, but if it goes out a little bit longer, then you're looking at that. So we've got two kind of do or die points here coming up. So it can try it here, which is a possibility, but if it doesn't get going and kind of stalls out, then double that out again. And then we would be looking for more downside next week. But overall, not enough of a shift here to really get a bounce going. There's a little bit. Let me show it to you on the 15-minute. So the one main con here with the avalanche and with, trying to get going again, that's going to probably make it that it would want to go out further, is that it had the gap and then kind of shifted into this low. So if we think of this as the continuation, if we look at the NASDAQ this morning, you'll recall that Nicole and I were talking about this, how it still had a bearish bias, even though it was kind of shifting. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to pull this up on Telegram here so we can kind of see this in the background. So if, whoops, sorry about that, a little too big. Make that smaller. So if we look at this, like how they're kind of comparing, here's the drop, here's the shift, okay? Here's the drop, here's the shift. See the two wave here? And then how this kind of just kind of kept creeping lower. So if it tried to go, like let's say if it tried to go here, it could creep out again, double that distance, and then go. So if we look at the NASDAQ in greater detail here, what we have happening on this is that it had that first congestion, tried to go, couldn't quite get going. So then it went into the second one, and now it's trying to gain steam. So it's treating this like a two-wave correction that's tilted, but it could also have gone out like that and gone out farther this way and then broken. So that's where we're at on Google. I got hiccups again. Had hiccups yesterday during class too. So that's what I'm looking at on this. So, right here, there's a little bit of support. This could base out, try to break down again, but then not really get going and then go next week. Let's see, Microsoft, SFT. Can tell some of you guys are asking about some of the stuff in your longer term portfolios. Microsoft as a tech, it's held up a lot better than the overall market. We've seen that with a number of techs. So we've got a pullback here about, it's over 50%, probably around 61.8. Let's put that on there. Not quite 61.8. Over 50% though, but you're really kind of still reacting to that 50% move. That means previous lows are a lot stronger support. I don't suspect this will pull back as much as the overall market would. in terms of trying to, make it back down to the lows, but you do have still the same risk involved. So what I would suspect would be more likely to happen with Microsoft is kind of a slower shift. It could start out fast and then slower and have a better chance of bouncing. So I would look for like in here as our support on Microsoft. INO, of course, we've seen a lot of this lately. Speculation on vaccines and all that fun stuff. So I've told you guys a lot about things that happen, when things go parabolic. And then we'll often get these, moves where when they're coming back down into lower levels, they'll get like these little pops and then they'll kind of creep lower. So we're seeing this try to do another little pop here. And so then this can kind of creep lower. And then if we get some actual positive news, we could see this pop again, and it could even go further than it did over here. So that's something to think about here as we're watching this. It would be something to keep an eye on that could come into play. But realize that trading these type of things with that extra volatility also brings in a lot of extra risk. That's a nice intraday turnaround there. And then we've got the checkmark Phoenix here, just going right now. This can kind of push a little bit higher maybe here intraday before it kind of turns. Watch, maybe not. It has like a little bit of a momentum shift here. But look at this though. See how this tried to break right here and couldn't get going, and then it went and doubled out? That's what I'm talking about in the overall market for the downside. So then you end up with this as the first correction, this is the second correction, and then that's the buy trigger. So that was actually a really beautiful intraday play here. Let me show you what it looked like when it was forming. So sometimes when these are forming, they don't look like much. You really have to pay attention to the time development factor. So you have a single move back up here where it comes almost to that previous high. So it's a lot like the potential for a 2T, which would mean it could do a second wave back up with a measured move. It didn't get going. It stopped, pulled back, and then went. So it's very close to what happened on the overall market on the weekly time frame. Tesla. There's that lovely parabolic move on Tesla, really similar to INO. So when you're looking at INO and then looking at Tesla, watch down in here because you're probably going to get a lot of the same reactionary type of moves. On any do or die point, would you place a one cancels other order? You can do that. I've seen people, I haven't done that in a long time. I played around with doing it years ago where basically, it's does it go or doesn't it go? But I haven't done that lately. Usually I'll just wait when I'm into something to place an OCO order, or an OCA order. Um, but now I've been doing a lot more where it throws my bracket order up again once I'm getting into the trade, so then I'm moving from that point. But if something doesn't go by like a certain amount of time, then I'll cancel the order and wait for that to double. Looney Swiss. As you can see, the NASDAQ is trying to gain steam on the downside after it did that. Kind of went out a little bit longer there. And just gave a little bitty mega lunch to kind of keep going with the move. Weekly Canadian Swiss, really good flush. This is a lot like what we're seeing happening on oil. So on this, on an intraday, see how this popped and then it didn't do that shift in momentum like the overall market did. So instead of shifting like that, it went into a two-wave correction. So we actually had a really nice Phoenix, but since this was a straight up move and then the Phoenix, it's having a little harder time getting going. It still has potential to try to gain steam, but I would use this as like a trailing stop channel. You'd want to see it holding that zone on the way up and then trying to go and gain speed at this point to come into this level. That would be my next target zone. So here's your inverse head and shoulders. So really pretty setup here on the 60-minute. The euro. Euro's had some massive whiplash going on. I had opened my trade station in the background, but I'm just going to go ahead and close that. Keep this up. So here's our euro. So here was that little avalanche. It did it with a check mark. So this is coming back into some decent support in here. We might see some lower lows, something to kind of shift this momentum, but it's at a point in here where if you go and do a channel, if it does something holding the upper end of that channel, we could get a pop again. I wouldn't quite yet because it's gaining speed on this. So here it kind of starts out a little slower, does the check mark continuation, then goes a little bit faster. So I would want to see something try to do a little bit of a momentum shift in here, and then we could get a pop if you're looking for like a day trade type of situation. The daily on this, here we can see this craziness a little bit bigger on the daily, and then here's the weekly. So those are just kind of up in the air. What usually happens with this is that the range will widen up even more, but you'll start to see like kind of some smoother swings on it. So you'll start to get more of smoother back and forth swings again. They'll be more on par with what was happening over here versus all of this. So this will usually go into a megaphone at this point. Euro, Aussie. Here's that kind of megaphone Phoenix type of move. And pop. Let's see. Okay, so three lows, not really getting going, but this can have action that can start to pop up again and go a little bit better. Sometimes this will go and do a bigger two-way, but I don't think that's going to happen here. I'm not really seeing anything like that. Oh, by the way, oil just popped. Catching oil out of the corner of my eye. It goes zoom. So I would watch this for like little buys in here, but it's not the best because really this should have, like to try to get going, I wouldn't have wanted to see it pop and shift like that. I would have wanted to see something a little bit steadier and then a two-way correction and then go with kind of an inverse head and shoulders. But these are normal to get messy when you have the three lows like this after the parabolic move. It's normal to have a messier move in here. So these are ones I usually will do like building into a position. I won't just go and take all of the position at once. Let's just intraday just doesn't speak to me right now. It pulled back more than 50%, about 61.8. So previous highs are resistance. Probably just gonna hold this range here for the rest of the day. And gold or oil is back to where it broke out from. Had a nice two-way pullback into it. Let me show that to you. I totally have been trading this if I wasn't in class here. It's really pretty. Look at that. So here's a breakout, gain speed. It went like here within like seconds. Then you had a little shift up here, and then here's the two-way for the avalanche. So really beautiful drop pattern back down into the support. Price, or sorry, time, price. Time, price. Watch that series of corrections. So supporting here, this is one where things can start to get creepy and still kind of keep going lower. This right here, you can see that pause there in the middle. That's what we're seeing happening and trying to develop on a lot of individual securities right now. This one is just going faster. See that avalanche there? So this still has more downside. Time correction, price correction, comes back here. You're probably going to get it bouncing and widening up a little bit more. Momentum is pretty strong. Maybe I'll go do like another two-wave down like that before it bounces, but then get more widening up at this level. Probably see something like a boot forming down here. So kind of like a tilted channel to the downside. That's what I would be looking for on an EWZ. Tony, we noticed you use Ninja and TradeStation while on the webinars. You also use both to trade with, and which one do you prefer to use for potential trade candidates? So I've been using TradeStation mostly for stocks, but lately I've been trading mostly futures. So that's why you see me use Ninja Trader a lot more. And you don't see me, having more updates on my TradeStation stuff over here because I basically never use this computer with my TradeStation. I use my other computer. But yeah, just not doing as many stock trades. There's no reason not to, it's just I go through phases. So sometimes I'm trading mostly Forex, sometimes gold, sometimes oil, sometimes stocks, sometimes NASDAQ. I basically just don't have a preferred market. It's just wherever things kind of take me. So lately it's been oil. Do I use any other trading software? No, I don't. I was moving over an IRA to Ameritrade so that I could learn the Thinkorswim platform since a lot of you guys are using that one, but I've never used it. I started off on Realtic, and that's what I used for, gosh, I don't know, 12, 14 years. And then I used MB Trading for a long time before fully using TradeStation. And then now mostly Ninja. I think every broker has like pros and cons. I notice a lot of people with TradeStation have been having crash issues in the current market. How many of you have noticed that? Having some problems with it? I've been having some problems with Ninja Trader too, but once I went and reloaded it, I haven't had another issue. But what happens is like if you are having stability issues, go in and make sure you're cutting down the time that it is trying to load data for. So like if you're looking at intraday charts, have it only go back like 2 days if you're looking at maybe like a 100 tick chart. So have your chart only load like 2 days of data. So go through and make sure in each of your charts that you're only loading enough data that you really need. And that's going to help with stability too. You don't have as many as I do. I have NinjaTrader 8. I did cut down the number of windows that I had open. I really want all my other charts back up though, because I'm like flipping back and forth too much. But yeah, that was basically the issue that I was having with TradeStation, or not with TradeStation, with NinjaTrader. It was giving me an error that like data was outside of my array or something, and then it would like crash the system. And I have no idea why, but when I remade a workspace, it hasn't happened since then. So it was something that happened over the last two weeks with the workspaces, and it happened on both of my computers. So it wasn't just like a one computer thing. So it was something in NinjaTrader itself that did it, but I have no idea what. Those of you in League of Traders yesterday, you saw those error messages pop up on my teaching computer when we were opening NinjaTrader. Again, I don't know what it was. Never did figure it out. I will confess I didn't reach out to support staff either, though I just kind of messed around with it on my own. You had PTSD watching me. I know Donna's computer like totally crashed. She crushed everything. I'm like, uh-oh, gremlins. Let's see what else you guys have up here. Questions? I do find I like TradeStation for scanning stocks because I can flip through stocks really quickly. I don't have to wait for them to load because it downloads all the historical data when you're logging in and at the end of the day. So you don't have to, like with NinjaTrader, you'll notice there's a little bit of a pause when I load a chart because then it's loading all of the historical data. And TradeStation already has it. And I think that's part of the problem too that they ran into with the stability. So GLD. Ooh, and there was just a beautiful little pop out of oil too. I got to get through your charts, man, so I got to get back to this oil trading. Okay, gold. Here's that little phoenix. So here, see how this looks a lot like the intraday chart on the NASDAQ? So when something doesn't go at kind of like that two-way point and it just doesn't get going, that's when you can get that pop. So how that popped out of the channel. This one didn't give you that shift at the upper end of the channel though. It just popped out of it. Then you get the phoenix and then the continuation. So this is how things can turn back around off of the lows. And it's really similar to what the NASDAQ is trying to do on a 400 tick chart. So we are kind of like at this do or die stage here on the NASDAQ on the intraday. Can it go and drop there, or is it going to go out longer? GLD though, we're just in a range. Let me go look at my daily and weekly chart on gold futures. We popped back up to the upper end. It's kind of just playing around there at the upper end, up in here. Intraday, it looks like this. So that's like what's going on here. So it's kind of just messy. There's potential for this to try to do 1, 2, 3 here to pop it out, but it's not the prettiest because it pulled back 50%. That's what held us low here on the intraday charts. So gold, I'm just scalping. I mean, that's what I've been doing on it. Longer term, I still like gold as a longer term hold. I'm still in this as a longer term hold. This ticker symbol is like a dyslexic crossword, CWRD. Flipping around the W and the R. Let's see if it's gonna load for us. Not pulling up. Let's see, RWD. Yeah, I had it wrong. Thanks, Karen. I'm like, this is not right. Phoenix there, coming out of the megaphone. Intraday, this is a lot like messy gold. These usually will pull up more. This will usually continue here. Got that megaphone. The momentum on the intraday is not great for it. Let me see that again intraday. Get a 60-minute. It's not horrible. I guess that tilt isn't too bad. So if it could go like that again, that would help. Ideally, what I like to see is it hold like these two highs and then pull. And then you get the 1, 2, 3 where it goes and just really breaks more strongly out of that. You can kind of see that happening in here. Kind of pulled back a little bit more gradually, popped, and then popped out of it. The same thing, a little shift there. So we don't quite have that yet. There will be cases where it will only do the one wave and then still manage to continue, but the risk is higher against it. I totally invert some of my symbols. Let's see, did I get through? Let's see, other one. SKT. Scat, go away. Just reading all the symbols here. I might have needed a little bit more sleep than I got last night. So this is at a point where we are at a widening up zone down in here on the weekly. There's not really anything to change this yet. So this can still pull lower. Time correction, price correction. Still looks lower intraday. 1 and 2, a little bit exhausted here, but still can push a little bit lower. Yeah, I don't know that I could do anything with this. Here's the example though with like when it does that 2, then shifts, and then it actually continues. So we just saw one where it went and flipped and was able to pop, but this is one where you get the continuation. So you got 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So, I mean, trend-wise, the trend's exhausted. You're really just looking at more of like a widening up zone in here. So it's pretty much dead. Intel. There was a nice little baby avalanche on oil. I'm like watching the oil. Nobody's going to the malls anyway. Yeah. This pattern will usually come back and break these lows and come into this support over here. It's holding up really well, but I wouldn't rule out that potential for another drop. And it could do it, you know, two ways. Like we'll see sometimes where it'll just go like this, but it could also just go like this and do another wave down. So normally I would expect that this would try to come back into here. And it could do it with slower momentum and then pop again. But usually it's going to make it back down to that low over there. There's again the two-wave correction. Um, Richard, I have Phillips Capital for Ninja. Let me show you the follow through on the avalanche. It's following through really well on oil. It's just looking at this. It's probably going to be dead by the time we wrap up here. I'll be like, nope, I'm done. You missed them all. Better luck next time, Toni. Why is it not play? Oh, there we go. Here's the avalanche. Look at that. It's beautiful. Nice little 2T up here. So you got shorts here and here. Yes. The ES is basically the same as what's going on NASDAQ. Everything is pretty much the same here. So you can see again, here's the base on the ES. So we're looking at that same avalanche potential here. Again, it had a little bit of a shift going into it. We don't generally want to see that happening, but that's the pattern. All right, you guys. Well, that is going to be it here for today's session. What we will be doing, oh, Prakash, if you go and watch the videos from this weekend, that's going to answer that question, as well as last week's forward focus on, you know, what to do coming down into lows. I gave you guys some strategies for how to deal with that. Those are on my YouTube channel. There's also a video I posted Tuesday's League of Traders session for free on YouTube, so you can go and watch that too. I will grab you the absolute link for that quick. Make it easier for you to look it up. Just give me 1 second. Scrolling, 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 scrolling. Copy link. And post it in our chat box here. So this is Tuesday's League of Trader session. So you can share that with anybody you like, and you can watch that over on YouTube. And I posted it in the chat channel here too. All right, you guys, I'm gonna head on out now, and I will catch up with you all again next week. So stay safe out there, everyone. Be careful. Want to keep seeing everybody every week. Yep. Thank you. You too, you guys. Take care. Bye.